Welcome to the Reverberations podcast, where we explore the human experience and the journey of self-discovery. What is good, everybody? What an honor it is to have a very dear friend of mine, our special guest, Jessica Vignolle. This conversation that we had was just awesome. It was incredible to be able to tune in with Jessica, who I've known for over 40 years, and talk about what it means when we're true to ourself, when we move from a space of deep inner alignment, and how we can tune into the unseen realm and what we can do to create real, lasting change. So excited to share this podcast, and Jessica, who's a guide of rite of passage retreats, a ceremonial cacao and plant medicine facilitator, an inner alignment mentor, an all-around magical human being. Let's go. Well, thank you for joining another episode of Reverberations. As always, it's an honor to share this time and space with you. And this season, the whole ethos is better together. And in our last episode, we were sharing what that ethos is all about and what we're dialing into and what we're of service to, and how we can support one another in collaborative economy and in regenerative resources and creating a more sustainable and harmonious coexistence for all in creation and all things within and throughout. And it's really an honor to share this episode and bring on probably my longest friend that I have been in connection with. And we have woven this journey over 40 years, which is crazy. And we have shared the same interests. We have shared the same journey. We have navigated through even similar geographic locations and even shared communities. And we've just always cross-pollinated and come back to each other and shared where we're at, and the witnessings and the learnings and what we are of service to has been very much in alignment of how we've navigated this journey. And so to bring Jessica on is really just a true honor to be able to share. And it all began, Jessica, what would you say? Was it like back in second grade?
Yeah, first or second grade. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had moved from Danbury, Connecticut over to Brookfield. And it was quite a shift for me of going from Danbury to Brookfield. Even though it was a town over, it's a totally different demographic. So when I came over, I was used to a different way of life. And when I got on the bus and making friends and all of that, and you were one of the first ones that I had met, and instantly, we had connected. And then over the years, we had just grown this connection. And I'll never forget, like the defining moment for me was when we were at that firehouse and we were doing that breakdance battle together.
All about that. Oh my gosh. And we both won.
Yeah. And that was like outstanding. Like,
yeah, that was 7th grade. And that was a dance. I think it was like a dance party at the Candlewood Firehouse. And there was that break dance contest, and you and I won. And I remember winning a record album. Yeah. I knew for the longest time what it was called. It's escaping me right now, but
I mean, just talk about like epic memories of, taking it back to the dance floor and, just leaving it all out on the dance floor and it's just amazing. And so just sharing that and then tennis and working at the same tennis club, and then, the whole rave scene, and then, finding holistic health and being of service to that, and spirituality and regenerative economies and, plant medicines and all of the things that we have, found ourselves traveling through in this lifetime. Has just been amazing. So I want to open up the conversation to you, Jessica, and just kind of share, about the journey, if you want to dial into that, share where you're at now and what you're of service to, and just share with our audience, what it is, that lights you up in this human experience.
Thanks, John. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate being here with you in this space and on this platform. And I love that this is the Better Together theme, because I really do find that having communion and friendships that withstand, all of the different expressions and experiences in life, and being in this, on this journey together, is just exquisite. So, much appreciation for you and what you're doing here in the world, and inviting me in, just inviting me into this space to talk and riff and create possibility and ideally, offer something to others that helps lift them up or gives them inspiration. That's my intention here. So,
absolutely.
So the question of where am I now? What am I in service to? Like everybody, it's been quite a journey, and I just moved back to Maui, where I had lived in the late 90s, early 2000s, just moved back here to Maui in May with my husband and my son, who's 17.
So excited.
Yeah, it's amazing to be back here. I mean, this is my heart and soul, and just coming back here, the process of getting back here has been such an incredible process in surrender and trust. And I'd say that's really where I'm finding myself these days, is leaning deeply into what does it mean when I am true to myself, where I am not wavering because of others or expectations that are placed on me from outside of me. And I just really tune in and move from a place of deep inner alignment.
Yeah.
And that experience of fully surrendering to that process and trusting that, we live in an abundant universe that is always for us and never against us. And when we are coming from that place of alignment, then it seems, at least through my experience right now, that the doors open. We're carried through the moments by grace, by spirit, by source. And that it's when, for myself at least, in times where I have moved from a place that isn't fully aligned within, that I run into all the what feels like roadblocks, where things just don't seem to be happening. And I keep bumping into what feels like walls, or, places that just are very sticky. And so this is really where I'm finding myself in this move to Maui. Really was such a beautiful opportunity to really step into this, because it was a huge move for us, and I'm really experiencing all of the openings that I'm speaking of through this process. And and like I said, it's just been an incredible process of surrender and trust and letting go of control, letting go of gripping on for dear life of what if this doesn't go the way I want it to go, or whatever. And just, listening to deep intuition, and also to the guidance that is always here. And that's also been a huge part of my process over the last several years, is really tuning into the unseen realm and working with my guides and guardians and angels and all of my team light, and knowing that there is a lot of support from like behind the veil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love what you shared about, your journey with moving to Maui and how that is your curriculum right now. It's providing you everything that you need. And I think that's one of the most special things when we look at our experience and we lean into radical trust that you were talking about, like just deep in the throes of that trust, right? Of like, I'm being called here for something that's bigger than what I can even imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to trust in this process. And what is on the other side of that is going to be something that is beyond my comprehension, and listening deeper into that, right? Like feeling into it and listening deeper into what is actually being spoken beyond the words. That feeling tone that is there. That's, like you said, it's always available. Always available. So one of the things that I love that you spoke about is the unseen, and you were talking about your team light and that your guides being there. Can you speak a little bit more about that? Because I think a lot of people, when we talk about the unseen and our spirit guides and our team that is, in the unseen, some people get kind of taken aback and they don't really know what that means or how to even dial into that. There's a power that's available to us that's beyond what we can see and what is, comprehensible through just our own limited, awarenesses. So I'd love if you spoke into that, because you have such a beautiful way of articulating that.
Yeah, thanks, John. And I just love how you reflected back to me what I was sharing there. I really feel heard in all of that. Yeah. So this is area that I had been really intrigued by and interested in for quite a while. And it's also an area where I just wasn't experiencing it. I wasn't experiencing what I heard others speaking about when it came to connecting with the beings of the unseen realm. And I embarked on a journey about a year and a half ago. It was through hearing a call and listening to the guidance and just saying yes. And it started with this desire, this, I don't know, just really hearing the word cacao. And I was like, cacao, that's interesting. I'm curious about that. What's cacao? And, why am I all of a sudden interested in it? And, I hadn't been to like a cacao ceremony or been introduced to it by anyone, but it was something that I started to become curious about. And I actually did a search on Instagram and found a page called Anchoring the Light. And the woman behind the page, her name is Gemma. And I started following this page, following Gemma, and just really resonating with everything she was sharing. It just spoke so deeply to me. And then she was offering a cacao ceremonialist training. And I was just like a full body yes. And so I dove into that, not knowing really anything about what it would be about. And it was a training in serving and working with the sacred ancient medicine of cacao.
Yeah.
And it was so much more. So Gemma has spent, I don't know, probably close to 10 years studying through an ancient Incan lineage in Peru in the Andes. And she has been guided to pass this knowledge on to others and really bring this wisdom out into the world more so that more people can be carriers of this wisdom. And so this training was 3 months of a deep dive into this kind of shamanic realm of really working with on a daily basis the beings of the unseen realm. And I started this practice that, began with, before I even open my eyes in the morning, calling them all in, knowing that they're already there. I don't actually need to call them in, but calling them in so that I can really have a felt experience with them. And then sitting at my altar and continuing that process. And, knowing that my ancestors are also here at my back, right? Like all of those souls that came before me, that have done their work, that have moved over, into that unseen place, right? They've transitioned.
Absolutely.
And they're here. I mean, at least this is how I experience it, is they're here, guiding me and cheering for me and, appreciating the work that I'm doing in the world and that I'm doing within my, my own healing and my own process. Knowing that whatever I'm doing, I'm not only healing for myself, but I'm healing for my lineage, for, those that came before me and for the future generations, right? It goes backwards and it goes forwards, our healing. So, just being in this shamanic training with Gemma, and I don't like to even really use that word shamanic because it can be used so loosely and
For sure.
it's just a training and working with the energies of the world, of the universe, the elemental forces, our animal spirit guides, our, the star beings and star nations. And then I've continued on studying with Gemma. We work with this traveling altar called the Mesa. And so I actually have them right here with me. I have 2 mesas that I'm working with right now. And so
what are those?
The mesas are, they are altars to Pachamama, so to Mother Earth. And they're basically reflections of the mesa carrier. So they're bundles that are within which are contained different rocks and stones and crystals that are called kuyas, that are all programmed with different mountain spirits, different goddess energies, elemental forces, animal allies, different essences like unconditional love, vitality, higher guidance, our service, sacred service. And so each of these stones that are inside the mesa are programmed for supporting the mesa carrier as well as anyone that we work with. And there are thousands of mesa carriers around the world. And there's so much more than that as well. There are representations of Cusco, of the different areas around Cusco in Peru, of ley lines, which are energetic lines that cover the globe and extend outward into the ethers. And so they're very complex, ancient teachings and energies that are able to be called upon and worked with.
Yeah.
And it's really quite a beautiful teaching. And I'm still such a student of it. There's so much knowledge and wisdom in these lineages that I'm still just like beginner within it, and I've already experienced in such incredible ways how powerful they are. Like where I have programmed a stone or a crystal for something that I'm calling in, like financial abundance, or moving through a process with a loved one, or the move to Maui, and programming this and putting it in a certain area within the mesa that then allows movement to happen. So, and I've experienced things shifting immediately after these kuyas have been programmed. So it's really quite profound. And I feel very honored to be called to work with these.
I love what you said about, you had a practice, right, that opened you up to, what could be intimidating for a lot of people. Because when people tune in to the unseen or tune into spiritual practices or star beings, or, we hear a lot of these things, right? And, like you're saying, like I want to experience these things that other people are talking about. How do I even get there? Right. Like people are speaking to it and it can be so intimidating. Like, where do I even start? And then let's say we find something online, or we find that there's like a meetup group or something's going on. And then we have to make that choice. And I love what you said. I'm just saying yes. Right. And that's really what it comes down to, is just say yes to what pulls us, that subtle energetic pull.
Yeah.
Right? To be magnetized by our curiosity. That's really all it takes. And when we lean into that, that's where the magic happens. That's where things start to show up and like, oh my gosh, it's just synchronistic encounters of the infinite kind begin to one after another, right? Like you were saying, our team. And then all of a sudden, like things start cheering for us. And I was saying this the other day to, another one of my colleagues was just sharing like, I'm sitting here and I'm looking up at the top of the mountain, right? And I see this whole group of people. I can see their facial expressions. I can see their eyes. I can see their light. And they're all cheering for me. They're like, come on, we got this.
Yeah.
We got this. Let's go, And it's not even about getting to the top of the mountain. It's knowing that there's a whole team of people, of beings, of energies, of where we are fully resourced and it's always available. And this energetic component is saying, we got this. We're better together. We got this. And I love how you spoke to that because it's really the essence of healing. I would love if you could speak to, because we've been hearing a lot about cacao lately, right? And I think a lot of people are wondering, okay, I got this chocolate bar. I have hot chocolate. I'm just going to make some hot. So can you share what the difference is between a cacao ceremonial, why it's so impactful versus just making some Swiss Miss?
Yeah, for sure. Well, a cacao ceremony is ceremonial grade cacao. So that is cacao, which is grown on, a lot of people don't even know where it comes from, right? So cacao comes from a tree. And it is grown as a pod, beautiful, harder on the outside, oval pod. And inside is actually a fruit. And it's just a very thin white fruit. And inside that fruit is the bean, right? And so the bean is what is used to make cacao. And so ceremonial grade cacao comes from land, seeds, plants, and a process that all are done with a lot of presence, a lot of intention, a lot of love, prayer, and in a very integrous way for people to have an experience when consumed that really drops them into a heart space that brings them down from the thinking mind and into the feeling heart, into the body. And this includes the way it's harvested, and cacao is actually raw. So it's not processed in the sense that it's not heated and cooked, right? It's in its raw form. It gets ground down. So in that regard, it does get processed a bit and then made into a paste. And then that's how I purchase it myself, is in a paste form that's hardened. And then the way that it's prepared at that point by whomever is offering the ceremony is also done in a very ceremonious way, just in the preparation where everything that's being used to prepare it, including the cacao, is smudged with a sage or a palo santo. It's programmed by the preparer with whatever, kind of program that person is putting into it. Like for me, it's a prayer of whomever receives this medicine. Let it open their heart. Let it calm the mind. Let it bring healing and communion. And that only beings of the highest frequencies of light are welcome in that space.
Yeah.
And so the difference between that and like chocolate, right? Like a Hershey's bar, or Swiss Miss or something like that, like you're saying, is that chocolate is processed, it's heated, it's, or I should actually just rewind a little bit. When it's prepared for ceremony, also it's cooked in water, but it is not cooked to a boiling point.
Okay.
And then the preparer will add a little bit of cayenne pepper, chili pepper, which kind of activates the spirit of cacao. the spirit, meaning the goddess Ish Cacao, who comes to support that process of dropping into the heart space.
Yeah.
And then, the process of making chocolate is it gets heated to higher temperatures, sugar gets added, milk or dairy products get added. It doesn't have that same level of intention for that dropping into the heart space per se.
Yeah.
And cacao has been used for, they're finding evidence of up to 4,000 years it's been used.
Wow.
And highly honored as not just something that is healing, but just, it's cacao literally is the translation of the Latin word for cacao is food of the gods. And so it was used for millennia in, with the elite for trading, for ceremony. And it's just a really beautiful medicine. So I feel very honored to be someone that is serving it at this time and bringing people together in this heart coherent kind of way.
Yeah. And, one of the things that you really dialed into there was the power of prayer and the power of intention, right? And what goes into it. And I think, that's one of the things when we talk about ceremony, when we talk about a lot of these things of where we are opening up to these energies or the spirits that are within the plant is in that power of prayer and in the power of intention, we are invoking essentially the essence of that plant to come forward, right? And I love how you were talking about the goddess, and that's something that I didn't know about cacao, and that's another whole level to it. And it's interesting because I've been really fascinated with cacao and cacao ceremonies, and have been to several myself, and I hold cacao for our sound experiences and things like that. And my introduction to it, believe it or not, and it wasn't cacao. It was when I was working in a corporate environment, and this woman came in. We had this week of where every single day there was a different practitioner that would come in, and they would share like a chair massage, or they would share like a meditation technique or visualization, right? And this woman came in, and this was in I was living in Colorado Springs at the time. And this woman came in and she brought in chocolate, and it was just, it was dark chocolate. I can't even speak to the quality or anything of it. However, what she spoke to was how, if you're having a moment and, you want to just take a step back and you want to open up your serotonin, which serotonin is a chemical that, carries the messages between our nerve cells in the brain, in and throughout the body, plays a lot of roles in our mood, in elevation of our mood, modulation, cognition, reward, learning, memory, all of those things. And she spoke to, if you just take a little nibble and you don't chew it, you just allow it to dissolve in your mouth. I'll never forget that, because it had a relationship, or chocolate and I had a different relationship from that moment forward. So when I started hearing about cacao ceremonies, there was something that pull to it. And one of the things I want to dial it back to something that you shared earlier was when you were talking about learning about it and being curious about it. One thing that I've loved about our experience, our shared human experience with you and I, is that the perpetual student. Right? Every time that we communicate, we're always sharing like what's new, what we're learning, and what we're expanding into. So that's just, it's a beautiful experiencing to be able to share that over time and space, right? Because we haven't been in the same time and space since LA.
Yeah.
Right? When we were at Cafe
physically.
Gratitude. Yeah, physically. So it's so beautiful to witness, over the years, everything that that you're up to, and now utilizing this as a way for communion.
Yeah.
So walk me through, when you're holding the cacao ceremony, what are the things that are coming forward? You were talking about it being a heart opener, right? So can you walk me through what your ceremony would be like and the type of things that come forward in there, and what people are experiencing in those moments?
Yeah, for sure. When I sit with cacao with myself and others, I we'll always start with smudging. So this way, we light sacred smoke and clear the energy field of the space we're in and of ourselves. And then, sitting in circle or sitting across from whomever is here with me, or in the space with me. And we'll just really drop in, like drop into the present moment. Oftentimes, closing our eyes and just connecting with our breath, connecting with our body through the breath. And then we'll start with opening the portals of the cardinal directions. So I work with the medicine wheel of the Chicana, which is, again, through this Andean lineage, that is, the Chicana is based off the Southern Cross, the star constellation, the Southern Cross. And if you go to the Cusco region, you'll see the Chicana all over. It's a cross-shaped symbol. Okay. And so we'll go through the cardinal directions and open these portals, right? So calling in the different beings of the unseen realm that I was speaking of in each of these directions, and calling in all of our guides and guardians in that process. And what this does is it really starts to create a container, because when we call all of these beings into this space, where the intention of it is to create an energetic container that's being held by something bigger than ourselves, so that we can actually have a safe space to allow whatever comes forward in the process to come forward. So at that point, everybody will have their cup of cacao, and we will program the actual medicine in that cup, the cacao in the cup, through our prayer and through our breath. So we'll everybody will be guided to call forward a prayer for themselves, and then breathing that prayer into their cup and coating their medicine with this prayer, and then receiving some of their medicine. So they're actually drinking in the prayer, right? And then we'll do that several times with several different prayers, with a prayer for ourselves, a prayer for others, that kind of thing. And then from there, the ceremony can go in many directions. Sometimes I'll go into really getting into the body through movement and ecstatic dance. Other times I will guide people in connecting into like an emotional release process through breath work. Other times we may have some oracle cards out for people to choose one and read to themselves, and maybe share something about what they're reading that may have resonance for them. We may go into a sharing circle where people get to, share their intentions or what's present for them, or anything they may be challenged with at that time. So there's a lot of different ways it can look at this point. It could go into some gentle yoga or, yin yoga movement like that. And then after we've kind of gone through whatever the process is at that point, then we'll make sure that we close the ceremony by just giving gratitude and thanks for all of those beings that were supporting us. And it's just a really beautiful medium, the cacao, to drop us into that place of, of like being really embodied. Because we tend to be so identified with our minds in the Western world. A lot of us who are still maybe starting this journey of connecting more with our bodies, and dropping down from that thinking mind, we can be so identified with the thoughts that we think we are our thoughts. It's like we buy into and believe every thought we think. And when we're identified in that way with the mind, it can really, the mind creates all kinds of stories. Like the mind's job is to think, and it comes up with all kinds of stories that perpetuate and reinforce our the ways in which we see ourselves and see the world around us and see others. And so when we get into more of a practice of dropping down from the thinking mind and into the feeling body, into our hearts, we can have a more embodied somatic experience. And that's where a lot of healing of trauma can happen. That's where a lot of just being more in a space of being able to feel that inner alignment that I was talking of, to be more attuned to the truth of what's present for us, comes from. So being able to work with this sacred medicine of cacao to be a vehicle to drop more into these like lower parts of our human experience, it really supports that process.
Yeah, I love how you articulated that, because it's like a softer energetic container that's held in the heart space, right? That offers like the tools, the technologies, the resources to come forward, literally opening up the channels for energy to be expressed in a way that other people may have a challenging time of being able to express that, because we are so caught up in our mind with the business, right?
Yeah.
Of where it's like we have these thoughts that are just constantly on repeat over and over and over, of where it's like we're overwhelmed, we're overwhelmed with the energetic expression of everything that is vying for our attention in this world. And, it really just perpetuates the unresolved traumas to just continually be triggered over and over again. So when we have these, these tools, or literally a sacred medicine of food that is available for us to sit with, to be present with, to hold the ceremony, there's a word that comes forward that you spoke to at the end of that ceremony is gratitude.
Yeah.
Waves of gratitude move through us. So, here it is that we have something that is this gift that allows us to just slow down for a moment, to be present with ourselves, and then have the active components of that open up our heart space so we can dissolve and dissipate any of that energetic constriction that is holding us back from our genuine truth, right? Of like, peeling back the layers of like, I'm fine, I'm okay, I'm good, today was fine, into being like, oh, wow, like I had this immense wave of emotion come forward for me as I'm sitting with this and as I'm sharing. And then all of a sudden, there's an unresolved trauma that came forward because I actually had an opportunity to feel into it, right? That inner alignment that you spoke to, that harmonization process of where we gift ourselves that moment to be with something that provides that conduit, that healing moment that we can carry forward. So just, thank you for being of service in that way and holding that container for our human experience to be able to go beyond, literally the word transformation means to go beyond form. And that's literally what is happening in these moments of where we are sitting in these experiences, and we're literally going beyond our container, beyond our earth suit, right? Beyond the meat package that we're embodying spirit.
Mm-hmm.
So it's beautiful. I love the way that you shared that. So I also want to tune in with your why. We've been talking about, what we have been up to for years, though your deeper why is so potent, and I would love for you to be able to share that.
Yeah, thank you. And I would love to share that. And I'd like to just add to what we're saying there a moment ago.
Yeah, for
that
sure.
Cacao is just one medium, right? And we can program anything with this gratitude and this love. It can be our water. Water is so receptive to programming. It can be tea, it can be food. It could even be food that maybe isn't grown from our garden, or that isn't the ideal food that we would want to be taking in. However, it's what we have at the moment.
And shift that energetic, right?
And shift the energetic through, just as you were saying, tuning into like gratitude for, whatever it is that we're going to be ingesting,
So
because
powerful.
as we're taking it in, we really want to be in that space of like, wow, thank you. This is beautiful. I get to receive this. And so I just wanted to add that, because cacao is just one of the many, many, many things that we can work with in that way. And so my why, gosh, I feel like I have a lot. I have a lot of whys. What's really funny is when I was little, my stepmom and her sisters and the adults around me used to call me the why guy.
Yeah.
I was always asking why, apparently. I've always been like really into that word. Why? Well, why?
Right?
Just curious about why is it all the way it is? And so to be asked, what's my why? I appreciate that question, because it gives me an opportunity to really like sit with, well, what am I even, on this journey of supporting others in their healing process for?
Yeah.
And couple things come forward. One is my son, the obvious answer. He's 17. His name's Nainoa. And years ago, I saw this Bible verse. Actually, I haven't read the Bible, but somehow this came into my awareness, and it became kind of my motto. And I even have it tattooed on my wrist, and it's, I will go before you and make the crooked places straight. And that just really spoke to my heart of like looking at the world around me and seeing what I see, the beauty and the pain, knowing that it's all incredibly perfect, in its seemingly imperfection. And I say that because I don't believe that we embodied in this physical form just to come here and experience bliss. I personally believe we already were experiencing bliss in a lot of ways. And so our embodiment in this physical form was actually to experience the spectrum of all of it. And I also, when I look around, see that there is a lot of pain in this world and a lot of suffering. And it appears to me that there's a lot of unnecessary suffering, that the world can be such an incredibly beautiful place where people and all of the beings of this world, the animals, the plants, like all of it, that we can live harmoniously and symbiotically. And so I feel like my why really comes from that place of like wanting to do my part in supporting the integration of all of it, where we get to really embrace the wounding that happens, because it happens. I don't think there's anybody that escapes being hurt and even, on some level traumatized. And then out of that are born our strategies, the ways that we cope with the world and with that pain, because the wounding that happens when we're little happens, usually at such a young age, that our little nervous systems can't process it, can't be with it. So we create these ways of being in the world that help us to not have to feel the intensity of that pain. And so just being able to embrace all of that within ourselves and with those around us, so that we aren't rejecting parts of ourselves or parts of others, and in doing so can create more of that harmony. So that's really kind of my why and my mission, I guess, wrapped up in one. Just, feeling really passionate about doing what I can to support humanity and moving toward being in a place of greater receptivity to love, and also of allowing love in and love out, right?
Yeah.
Letting others love penetrate inward, letting ourselves love ourselves, even the parts that we feel like are unlovable, and then also letting our love move outward, because a lot of us are very scared to love openly out of the fear of being hurt or rejected.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say that's what comes forward, at least when I hear you ask that.
That's beautiful. And the one thing that really stood out for me was when you said, embrace the wounding.
Mm-hmm.
So powerful, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because for me, when I hear that, literally my nervous system settles down.
Mm-hmm.
There's a breath that comes forward because, we have all experienced trauma in our life.
Mm-hmm.
We came into this world experiencing trauma.
Yeah, for a lot of us, the birthing process was very traumatic.
Absolutely, right? So there's a lot of experiences that we've had, like you shared, most of our trauma stems from our childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And, you were talking about the strategies for coping. And a lot of the modern strategies that we have are symptomatic relief.
Mm-hmm.
It's putting a Band-Aid on it, placating it, and saying, okay, we have enough to be able to move forward, enough to get on to the next thing. The whole conveyor belt mentality of just patch it up, move on.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Rather than slowing down for a moment, tuning into the healing process, energetically aligning with what we really need at a core level, at an energetic level. And when you spoke to that greater receptivity, that's really where it's at. Because the more that we're open to receive, and we're open to receiving the healing that we already know to be true, that we already have as possibility because it's all available for us. That's really where the magic unfolds, and there was something that you were sharing of, that exchange because of that fear on the other side of fear. And when we can lean into that radical acceptance of, what? We're all sharing this human experience. We've all got some wounding of sorts. If we could pull back the veil, if we can peel back the layer, if we can drop into our human experience, shed the ego for just a little bit, and recognize that I'm just another you. Right? Like look into your eyes and see the reflection of myself instead of a judgment of who you are as a visual representation of an energetic embodiment. And see myself in your eyes and recognize that we are sharing in this. And that brings it back to what you really ultimately said is, I'm here to support humanity. I'm here to support myself in my own experiencing and be that perpetual student. Because really what it sounds like we're up to, we're just learning about ourself, our greater self in communion with the ultimate self, and bridging that gap and harmonizing it so we can be a resource. And how beautiful is that when we are able to be an expression of that one consciousness. And if we can share that in any capacity, and I love what you said, whether it's through cacao, whether it's through water, whether it's through meditation, whether it's through prayer, whether it's through yoga, whatever the medium, it doesn't really matter as long as there's a conscious connection and an intention and a participation to learn, to be closer to source, to create union, to be equally yoked, and have that equal exchange of energy. So just thank you for being, of service to humanity. And that's really what this whole podcast is all about. That's what Reverberations is all about, is echoing that message out to create a more sustainable and harmonious coexistence for all in creation, in all things, within and throughout, not just humanity, not just all living, breathing things, all things on this planet, throughout the galaxy, throughout all of dimensions, is to harmonize that. And when we can embody that in our own human experience, I feel that we are on the precipice of really initiating the most magnanimous shift in human history, in all of history.
Beautifully said.
Thank you. I'm just riffing off of what you shared, and I really appreciate, how you show up in this world. I always have. And that's why we're, been weaving all of these years, and to be coming back together or reuniting in this space, and some of the things that we're going to be, birthing into existence, and this just being really the initiatory step of that is really beautiful.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I want to ask you a question here. If you had an opportunity to share one message with the world, you have the whole world at your attention, right? The whole world stops. Doesn't matter what time it is anywhere. The whole world just stops, and you're on the microphone and you have one message to share. What would that be?
Great question.
Not the easiest one either,
right? Right.
It always reminds me of like Eminem. Yeah, one opportunity or whatever. One shot. Yeah, one shot.
Yep.
This is the moment.
I guess what's coming. This is what's coming forward is just that it really starts with and centers around radical self-responsibility. When we can take responsibility for our own experiences and recognize that we're not victims here. We've been really fed this whole victim mentality, this victim consciousness. And when we can kind of pull back the lens from our, kind of narcissistic way of thinking everything revolves around us, and it's like the me way of navigating through the world, and we can see that there is a much bigger, divinely orchestrated thing happening here, and consider the perspective that our souls chose to embody in this physical world reality, and that they chose very purposefully all of the exact experiences that they would need for their own evolution. Then we can maybe start to see that we're not victims of circumstance, that we're actually super powerful co-creators with the divine. And from that place, then be able to take responsibility for our experiences. So what that would look like is, when we get triggered, that we stop projecting our wounding, our trauma onto the people and the circumstances around us. And we go, oh, wow, I'm being triggered right now. This person or this thing is a mirror showing me exactly where within myself there's still unresolved material.
Yes.
And we can then, instead of projecting back to that person or that thing and making them wrong or trying to fix or change what's going on out there, and we can go within and we can reparent ourselves, and we can, meaning be with ourself, with our little boy or little girl, that little one inside that actually experienced the wounding to begin with, and bring all the love, all the nurturing, all the care, the compassion, the kind words that we needed from those that were responsible for us at that time that we didn't get, right? We can actually tend to our little one and take care of our needs, our unmet needs ourselves. Then we will start to see real lasting change in the world, because we'll no longer be continuing to perpetuate that victim consciousness. And, you know, just knowing that these are not things we've been taught for most of us, right? These aren't tools we've been given. And these are like the fundamental tools that we really ought to be, you know, learning and teaching our children,
the baseline,
from a very young age, the baseline. You know, if we approached life from this place, from, you know, the start, we were able to see this, you know, this was being what
a platform to grow from.
Yeah. In early childhood education, we'd probably, be having a totally different experience. Not to say again that the one we're having is wrong, because it is what it is. And so, you know, that's where we're at. And we have a long way to go. We're all beginners when it comes to this, aren't we?
Yes.
So
thank you. Because, you know, the conscious evolutionary process, right, that we're in is, it's such a beautiful experiencing of witnessing ourself live streaming our day-to-day experience, and how we process that is so integral in what shows up in our world. And you know, that whole part of where you were speaking, like when we get triggered, we have a choice to either respond or react, right? Of where we can respond, which comes from that radical self-responsibility of checking in with ourselves. You know, when that happens, I feel this way, and I don't like the way that I feel, and I want something different. I want a different experience, right? So there's that personal responsibility and accountability, instead of being like, you do this to me and you do that. You know, that projection, it creates a competitive experience, and automatically there's a reaction because we initiate an action towards someone that person now not only has what they were sharing, now there's this other energy that is even more amplified coming back. And we can get into that tit for tat. We can get into the argumentative processes, which then, you know, go into spaces which are detrimental and unhealthy, and create those, you know, that patterned behavior of you know, the traumatic experiencing over and over again. And we see that so much in trauma bonding, right? Of where we're aligning with others that are just, we're feeding the monster. And so I love how you were just sharing, you know, that this process of conscious evolution and where we're directing it and what you're of service to is that radical self-responsibility of taking that accountability and knowing that we are co-creating with something that is bigger than us. And I love that word that you use of reparenting ourselves. Because when we look at that, for me, when I hear that word, like reparenting myself, it's almost like there is this divine essence, right? This unknown, unseen all-knowing and totally intimate experience that is witnessing me in my day-to-day navigation throughout my daily experience. And then I get to revisit that and say, how would I navigate this differently? I don't really like how that showed up. And I see my role in this. And if I want something different, then the responsibility is on me to communicate differently, to act differently, to maybe resource a little bit more, and maybe ask questions of somebody that might be going through something or has been through that, of how I can navigate this in a different way so I don't have to perpetuate this cycle any longer.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So just thank you for that. And I really, I resonate with that deeply. So one other question, and one that I ask, all of my guests that come on the show is, and we kind of already spoke to it, is what do you think we can do to support a more sustainable and harmonious human experience? How can we be better together?
Yeah, well, I believe change starts from within,
Yeah.
and so to me, it just starts with self-love
Mm.
of really, like I said earlier, embracing who we are, what we've been through, honoring our process, knowing that through honoring our process, through loving ourselves, we can then love others better. And because of what I see is that there's just so many people coming from a place of acting out from their trauma, that then they're putting all of that out into the world, out onto others, and creating a lot of division, creating a lot of walls within and without, and just not allowing love in, not allowing love out, like I mentioned before, and this is, I don't know, this just seems to be what gets in the way of us being able to really connect deeply and to create sustainability and a harmonious human experience, as you said. Like
Yeah.
a quote I have on my email signature is from Rumi. And it's, your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. And
yes.
that to me is like the ultimate route of being able to really have this experience where we can be better together,
Yeah. It's such a powerful quote, because it turns it back upon ourselves and how we show up in the world, and for ourselves internally.
Yeah, totally. I mean, we can't, when we really recognize that it's hard enough to make changes within, right?
Right.
And yet most of us are sitting here trying to make all these changes outside of ourselves, trying to change the people around us, the circumstances around us. When we can step into that place of surrender, trust, of letting go, of receptivity, these are all qualities of the feminine, and this is kind of where we're at in our, where humanity's at, right? In the swinging of the pendulum from the like the matriarchal to the patriarchal to the, we're kind of where we're entering this period now of really like where the masculine and the feminine get to like stand side by side and really support each other. And so this quality that I'm really like highlighting here is that of the feminine, of really leaning into of this place of receptivity. And so it's not about trying to grip onto and control all of these outer circumstances, instead it's really bringing that inward and going, how can I show up in a way that I'm honoring myself, my path, my heart, the little one inside that, that little inner child, and then coming from that place of more self-love and wholeness and integration, showing up in that way. If we were all to do that, I feel like we would have a totally different experience, right? Where we would be able to be living more harmoniously.
Absolutely. Integrating what we know to be true and, beginning within. And what you shared, it's like we've externalized our experience for so long of where everything needs to shift outside of us.
Mm-hmm.
And where we are is in that space of reclaiming the inner fire and the choice of recognizing that it does begin with ourself, and we can shift humanity by the choices that we make moment to moment, rather than projecting outwardly of what we want to happen, or saying that you need to change this needs to happen first before I do this. It's saying, you know what, I'm going to be the living evidence. I'm going to be the living example. And there's an empowerment that comes there. And then not only that, we then radiate that energy outward, and people will be like, oh, wow, you know what? It's actually possible. I don't need to rely on the government. I don't need to rely on this figurehead or this, whatever we're going to label. I can initiate this simply by being myself. And how powerful is that?
Mm-hmm.
And then when we share that with others that are in that same vibratory experience, it amplifies and it ripples out even more. And there is a power in congregation. There is a power in numbers. And like you said, when we begin to reclaim this awareness and embody the essence of what we know to be true, then miracles that we've always thought to be possible are now showing up. And how beautiful is that? That's where it's at.
Yeah, for sure. And I just want to add to this, for our listeners, that this is simple and it's not necessarily easy.
Right.
And like,
right. Yeah.
Right. Like, I mean, we're saying this like, oh, it's just like this, easy thing.
Just do it.
And it's not necessarily easy because we've been so conditioned to react to life in a much different way than what we're talking about here. Yeah. And we've also been, most of us are wrapped up in addiction, and even those of us who don't think we are, just our phones and the amount of time we spend, distracting ourselves from being here with ourselves, that it's not necessarily easy. And this is where like, I love what I do. I love what I'm, up to, which is supporting people in coming home to themselves, in returning to the truth of who they are. And so I'm just saying that because although it is, for me, at least the way I see it, it is about that radical self-responsibility and self-love and turning within. It can be really helpful to lean into others for support in that process. So,
Yeah, it's so
Yeah, we're
powerful
not meant to
because
do it alone.
no, that's the whole better together ethos, right? Is
Yeah.
like, we've been trying to figure it out all by ourselves, right? And then that's where we can get stuck in the perpetual loops. And, it's funny because you were talking about addiction. I was in the store the other day and I saw this chocolate bar and it said the name of it was Crackheads. And the motto beneath it was, we're all addicted to something. And
That's
I was
good.
like, that is freaking clever
Yeah. Yeah.
ass marketing, and how true it is, right?
Yeah, totally. It's awesome.
So, yeah, it was amazing. And um, just thank you for sharing that because, we can speak to this of like, yeah, just do it. It's easy. This is the way. Though the reason that it's called the great work is because it does require our participation. It does require us to be able to lean into ways that we maybe haven't been accustomed to over time. The alchemy happens over a process,
Mm-hmm.
and it takes time. It can
Yeah.
happen instantaneously, though it's the work that leads up to that. And sometimes it can be painful. Sometimes it can be, it can bring us to some really dark ass spaces, though
Yeah.
it's those moments that provide the greatest alchemy. And those are the ones, the only way through is through sometimes, most of the time, pretty much all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The way out
Yeah.
is through. And
Yeah.
yeah. And no, what you said is super important is that it can bring us to some dark places because a lot of this that we're talking about resides in what we can refer to as the shadow, right?
Yeah.
So a lot
Yeah.
of this can be around that shadow work of looking at the places within that are hard to face,
Yeah.
and that maybe without another person's like support and reflection, we might not even be able to see for ourselves because it is so in like the shadow.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's definitely not for the faint of heart. However, I do feel like so many people are feeling so much more called to the path of um, transformation, of seeing that these systems and the ways that we've been working within for so long are just not working.
Just not working. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, looking at like, what other way can I step other than the way that I've been stepping, and turning more to the plants, the intelligence of the plants is profound. And so, turning to the plants, turning to the beings of the unseen realm, turning to um, finding mentors that can guide us along the way. I really see just like so many people moving in this direction, and it's beautiful.
Yeah. There's a quote by Buckminster Fuller that really resonates with me, and kind of what we're
Mm,
talking about is you never change things by fighting the existing reality. To
mhm.
change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete.
Love it.
And that's what we're up to. And it's a
Yep.
challenge. And if there's a challenge, we have an opportunity to accept it, to lean into it, and to transmute it and to alchemize all of the things that hold us back from assimilating what we desire to experience. And yeah, just thank you for everything that you've shared. Is there anything that you want to share with the audience that's coming forward for you? Um, any conclusive words before we wrap it up for today?
Hmm. I appreciate you asking that because just as you were asking that, this word Kate popped into my awareness. And it's a word that was introduced to me by Gemma, one of my mentors, and it's the word Ayni. It's spelled
Mm,
A Ayni. It's a Quechua word, which is an ancient um, language there from the Andes in Peru. And Aini means reciprocity.
Mm.
And that's like the loose translation. Really, what the energy of Aini is it's that anything that we, from the place of energy, right? From that understanding that everything is energy, anything that we give, we also receive. And anything we receive, we have to give. And so just I invite everyone to start considering that, like, how can I come from a place of Aini, knowing that
Mm.
there's no, like I mentioned earlier, this is an abundant universe. Like, we don't need to um hold on tight to all of our resources. Like, can we give from a place of knowing that just in giving we receive? There's so much, like, if you've ever volunteered, you've given your time, you've given your heart, you've given your resources. It's like our cups get filled from that place,
Yeah.
right? And then also everything that we receive, we have then to give. And so just, yeah, considering for yourself, if you're listening to this, how can you step more into a place of Aini, of
Mm.
sacred reciprocity in your life? And knowing that it's all in, everything is in flow, everything is in motion. There's an energetic exchange happening at all times. And how can you participate in that? Because in participating in that, you're participating in love.
Yes.
And love wants to happen, so can you let it?
Yeah. It certainly does. It certainly does. How can we invite and participate in the sacred expression of love? An equal exchange of energy in the space of Aini. I love that.
Mm,
Thank you
mm,
for sharing that. I have not heard that word, and that sacred reciprocity resonates so deeply. And, Jessica, thank you for joining us on here and just sharing your insight, your wisdom, your heart, your practice. And I also want to ask, where can our listeners find you?
mm. Yeah. So I actually recently took my website down offline. And so if you would like to reach out to me, please feel free to email me. You can email me at my full name, which is Jessica Vignolle at gmail.com. And I'll just spell that. It's JESSICA at Gmail. So John, I'm sure you can link that into
Absolutely.
your notes there. And then also an organization that I've facilitated with for the last 6 years, leading Rite of Passage retreats, is the name of the organization is CORE, COR, which is the Latin word for heart. So you can also find me through CORE's website, and their website is coreexperience.com. So it's COR, the word experience.com. And I would say those are the best places to find me. You can also find me on Gemma's website, anchoringthelight.com. I'm one of her certified cacao ceremonialists. So you can read a little bit about me there as well.
Awesome. Beautiful. And I'll have all of those for you guys listed in the show notes. So everything that you'll need to get in touch with Jessica will be listed there. And Jessica, it's truly an honor having you today. And I can't wait for all of the things that we are going to co-participate in, and witnessing you just blooming is just, it just makes my heart just beam. So I'm looking forward to everything. And it's really the essence of what this season and moving forward is all about, is we are better together.
Thank you so much, John, for having me. And thank you to the listeners for your time. And I just really hope that there's something in this conversation that you get to receive, that you get to take with you and integrate into your experience. And yeah, John, I'm super stoked to still be moving through life alongside you as a dear friend and colleague and soul brother. Yeah. So thank you. So much gratitude.
I just beam from like every single cell of my being when I just think about our journey and what we've woven and just how our paths they're constantly just, it's like a DNA strand, you know,
totally.
Literally it's like a DNA strand.
Yeah.
It's just beautiful, co-creating life together. And that's what it's all about. I love you, sister. You're just so near and dear to my heart. And I love what we're up to.
Yeah, back at you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. And you guys definitely check out the show notes. Reach out to Jessica. She's such a wonderful resource. And you will be so glad weaving into what she is of service to in this incarnation of the human experience. So everyone, have yourself a wonderful day. We love you. And remember, we are better together. If this podcast resonated with you, or if you feel that there's someone that would, please pass it on. That's what Reverberations is all about, echoing a message that resonates within. And if you or anyone that you are connected with is feeling disconnected from passion, purpose, stuck in a feedback loop of repeating patterns that aren't providing results that are in alignment with what you desire, let's free up some bandwidth, open up the possibilities, and embrace the fire within. Visit Embrace the Fire Within, select a time to connect, and I look forward to our conversation. Have an amazing day. Love you all. As the sun rises, we wake each day with a question. You know what that question is, don't you? The one that rests in the cavities of your subconscious, playing hide and seek, knocking at the temples of your conscience. It's not so much the question, it's that you know the answer. You know, it's right there. You could just about touch it, taste it. I know you've been there. Yeah, you've seen the light. That inner glow from the depths of your soul. It's calling out to you. You too are a seeker for the beacon that shines inside. Are you ready to take it to another level? High above the sky, yet deep within your soul. Is this a dream? Or is this reality? Ask yourself. You know the answer. It's right here. Are you ready to take it to another level? High above the sky, yet deep within your soul. Elevate.